Hey, welcome to a new episode of Superhero Deep Dive. I am your host, Jason, and I've got a fun hero today. This is Shadowhawk with Image Comics. I'm really excited about this one because I think there was a lot of potential with this hero. Now, before I get into it, I have a couple things to say. Number one, these sources that I pull from are across the internet. They're varying places across the internet. They may not be completely complete, but they do give a really good insight on the current superhero. They, I try to get as much information without boring people. Like I try to kind of skip over the mundane parts. So you're not going to get complete, but you are definitely going to get enough to like get your feet wet and get an understanding of the character. Also want to give everyone a quick shout out at the Talk Nerdy to Me Network. Those are my friends Chris and Chris with the Friends with Benefits podcast. They air live on Twitch every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and they broadcast their show on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts on Wednesdays. This is usually uploaded every Friday, and I also have every Tuesday, and I also have another podcast called Before It All Starts Again, and that comes in every Friday. So give it a listen. I hope you enjoy it. If you ever need to reach out to me, I am all ears. You can catch me on Twitter at b4it all1, or you can reach out to me on email at b4itall@yahoo.com. So yeah, let's get into it. I chose Shadowhawk because he is a lesser known African American character, and I think he just had such a really cool backstory. His real name is Paul Johnstone. He grew up in Harlem, New York, and he was kind of kept on a good path due to a social worker. Like he was caught stealing at a young age, but a social worker saw potential in him and kept him on a good path. And the social worker ended up marrying his mom, so there's that. Kept him going. Paul had gone to law school, became a lawyer, and he moved on to become a district attorney. So that's pretty cool. I mean, that's someone that came from Harlem that worked their way up. You can't get better than that. Now there were some gangsters that tried to use Paul's half brother as leverage to let some of their people go, but Paul refused because he believed in what was right, even if it wasn't the easy choice. I don't really have any information on what happened to his half brother. If you know, let me know. But then I saw where the gangsters actually targeted Paul, beat him up bad, and then injected him with a vial of HIV infested blood. So that's crazy. And you have to remember, this is like back in the 90s when this character came out. This was when the AIDS epidemic was at an all-time high. People had all these conceived notions, like you couldn't be in the same room as someone with AIDS. You couldn't drink from the same water fountain. You couldn't drink from a cup. You couldn't have your food handled. I mean, all the stuff that was just way out there. It's kind of like, and for them to infect him with a vial of HIV-infected blood, that'd be the same thing as like running to someone and coughing all over them when you have COVID. Like you're just doing it. Like what can you do at that point? So he's got this HIV-infected blood coursing through his veins. Word of the attack and the infection spread through his office, and like I said, this was the 90s, and the HIV scares were hot at the time. Like it was crazy. This led to animosity in the office, and a fight broke out, which he defended himself as would anyone, and he ended up getting fired because of it. So, it's kind of one of those things that I think they kind of they kind of pushed and egged it on so they'd have a reason to fire him. That way, they could say, well, we didn't fire him because he had HIV and we were all worried about getting infected. We fired him because he was violent in the workspace. So stuff like that. But yeah, so he got fired. Of course, he would get depressed with this, and then he decided to try to fight crime. He had an old cop friend that kind of had a friend that developed this armor, and he decided to put on the armor. I mean, it's really that part was kind of weak with it, but it just kind of flowed like that. I guess he had a friend of a friend, so we had this really cool armor. And it was almost like a mix of Spider-Man and Wolverine is the best way I could describe it, but like the black and white Spider-Man, not the multicolored, because there wasn't a whole lot of detail in his costume. It was like a black bodysuit with these silver armor and points like that Wolverine has on his mask. But it was really cool. He had a main enemy who was a psychotic racist villain named Hawk's Shadow. I really don't know much information about him. I didn't look too deep into him because I wanted to focus on Shadowhawk. But I know that Shadowhawk ended up dying after. He had fought many battles. This one last battle, Hawk Shadow kidnapped Shadowhawk's mom. Shadowhawk rescued her. But the battle left him so beaten and weakened, he couldn't get away from the police that were coming, and he was a whole vigilante thing. So, they were gonna arrest anyone, but he couldn't get away. So he's in police custody, and because he's so weak, the HIV and the AIDS they just kind of caught up with him, and his body gave out, and he died. So yeah, he's got this really cool history about him. He's a man that he tried to do right. He tried to do right, and they didn't just beat him up, but they injected him with this HIV infected blood. That's like a death sentence right there. Because there was no cure at the time. So, in fact, I should have actually researched. I know that they had something for it, but I don't know if it was a cure nowadays, but as of 2021. So I should have researched that, and that's on me. So I'm sorry about that. But at the time, there's no cure. So, yeah, that kind of sucks, right? I mean, because even if you walked away from that fight, you're not walking away for a long time. And that depression kicked in, but he decided to kind of rise above it. And I thought that was really cool. His powers. Doesn't have too many powers. His armor makes him completely bulletproof. And it gives him enhanced strength and agility. Now, he had all these pouches on his armor, which had pills in it. And that was to kind of help control the HIV. Kind of help suppress a lot of it. So that was cool. He was known for being really ultra violent at first, like when he first came out. It was funny because it was like almost every issue for a while he was breaking someone's spine. It's like why? But as his infection spread, so as the AIDS developed, he grew a lot more tolerant, and he kind of picked his battles better. I didn't see any relationships listed. The ex-cop that helped him find the armor, like the friend with the armor, that was a female, I believe. So there may have been something there, but I don't see where it got any deeper. And at the time when this was out, I really can't see where there'd be much of a relationship issue because, like I said before, HIV was such a big thing back then. That, it's almost like having the plague. Some fun facts about him. Like, his name, like Shadowhawk, was originally supposed to be another name for Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy, Starhawk. Like Starhawk will get these powers over darkness, and they call him Shadowhawk. um, I'm glad they didn't do that. I've always liked Starhawk as a character, but I'm glad Shadowhawk as a character got his own name, got his own title, and got his own story to tell. Um, let's see what else. Oh, they've tried a bunch of different things to get rid of the virus inside of him. Like, for instance, they've tried exorcising the virus spirit out of him. Really don't know what that is, but doesn't sound comfortable. They wanted to transplant his consciousness into a robot, so the robot wouldn't have HIV. They tried that, but that was not successful. And then they wanted to actually like restructure his body, like genetic restructuring, to where he could live longer and maybe not have it. Um, these none of these worked. None of these worked. He was a victim that was not going to be a victim. And Shadowhawks also had multiple action figures out because he's awesome. And this is like my favorite part of the show. I go into power expansions. Like, how would I make this character better? So, I like his story, but I think we in the proverbial we, in the grand scheme of things, we could have done better. Let's still have him be in the 90s. Let's get rid of the injection of HIV. Let's get rid of that. But let's have him be a homosexual character that has HIV. Like, he recently found out he has HIV. And it could be for whatever reason. It could be, like I would like to see him in a stable relationship. He's had a boyfriend. Because at that time, gay marriages weren't legal. So if it's in the 90s, we have to hold on to that. But let's have him have a stable relationship, and maybe something happened. Like, maybe I don't want to say drug use. It could have been anything. Like, maybe he went and his boyfriend had it and he didn't know at the time, or he had it from a previous relationship and didn't know, and all of a sudden it kind of, his health starts failing and they get checked out and he finds out he has it. But I mean, let's have it be something a little bit more innocent, not as sinister as someone jumped him and injected him with HIV. But let's have him be a mainstream LGBTQIA plus character that got the disease, and it's not something malicious. It's just a product of the times. That way, he could actually be a figurehead in Image Comics. He could be one of their front runners. And that way we could still see iterations of the character today. We got to think there are characters that have crossed over to other properties, like Angela is in Marvel now, and that was originally a Spawn character. So, we can have this. And Image had some good potential for characters. They had Spawn, they had Savage Dragon. Shadowhawk could have been one of those characters, because one of the things I have written down is, they could explore their personal lives, as like a gay man who's also an African American gay man, so he's a person of color that's also gay. He can explore his personal lives, biases in society as a district attorney. back in the day, you got to think of all the humor that was out there. We would call it homophobic nowadays, but back then it was acceptable because it was still kind of taboo. So I'm not condemning. I refuse to condemn humor from 30 years ago when it was acceptable then. Like if you could laugh at it then, you can laugh at it now. You don't have to take it so seriously. And that's just a personal belief I have. If they're making comments now, then yes, people can get in trouble for it. But let's let the past be the past. But this one, we could explore things. We could help normalize the things that people thought were so taboo, and we could put a human, even if it's a fictional character, we could put a human face behind it. We can have him be an LGBTQIA plus icon instead of just someone with a death sentence. And I thought that would have been really cool. Have him fight the fight. Have his armor, be able to be upgraded or something to where, he's able to hang with the big guys. He's able to hang with the big bads. Let's have him do that. All the while, he is shattering people's beliefs of the hetero norm. There are people that there are other heroes that may not have trusted him because he's homosexual, but then, they fight together and they learn that, their biases were wrong. As an African American growing up in Harlem, we could definitely see things going on where, you have, I don't know, just a lot of the society biases. I just think that character could have been instrumental in helping our society grow in reality. I think is really cool because he is a character that, at the time, in the 90s, HIV was the worst thing ever, period. Because it caused your health to fail and it caused your body to start shutting down little by little. It just progressively got weaker and weaker and weaker. It was terrible. So we could have had someone fighting that. And in an effort, because as far as he knew, he had a death sentence, right? Think about it. Like there was nothing at the time that could cure it. And you don't want to put something that heavy in the comic books and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, he's cured. We can keep continuing. Let him have a story to tell. Let him go down fighting and doing all the good that he possibly could during that time. I think it would be amazing. I think it would be absolutely an amazing read because it would be something that, if this was done in that kind of way, and it was written well to where you could read it years down the road, you can pass these stories down to your children and stuff. And things like that. This could help some people that are going through those hardships in life, with their identity, and I grew up in a weird generation where, like when I was young, we didn't have, we had landlines. When I was in high school, you could have a cell phone in your car, like the big car phones that had the bag with the battery packs. But you could have beepers like later in high school. Like maybe my junior or senior year, people had pagers and stuff. But then, I was in college before people started actually carrying cell phones. So, I saw all this technology kind of come up. And back then we just didn't have a whole lot of the identity um, stuff that we have now. So forgive me if I'm mislabeling anything. It's definitely not my intention to offend. I'm trying to, like, I've actually reached out to friends. I've reached out to family that were younger, that were involved in the communities, that could help me not be offensive as much as possible. So I don't want to do that, but I do want to. I wanted something that could, be a hero. Like, if we look, Black Panther is an icon now in the African American kind of geek sci-fi community, um, and it's mainly because the actor that played him, I believe it's Chadwick Boseman, and if I get the name wrong, I truly am sorry. I'm going by memory on this, but he was an outstanding person. He was a great human being, and the movie was written really well. But like before then, he was cool. Everyone liked him, but I mean, he wasn't super well known. So he had the platform, and then he became a strong figurehead in the minority, I guess, realm. Um, but this character could do the same. This character, if I don't know who has his property now, or if the property's up for grabs, but I would love to see this property come up and make it as a new series, as a movie, just anything. But let's have him out because he was. I mean, there's just so many things that work against him. If you look, like in Harlem, was not known to be the best area. So having come someone from that was assigned to social worker, and having that because he was caught stealing, and then someone seeing the potential and helping him push through to go to law school, be a lawyer, and then go on to work as a district attorney, which meant that he was, instead of like going into the private law where he could help defend the bad guys, or defend the accused, he was the one that was defending the law, and he was putting people away. And I mean, we can explore that. He was probably putting people he grew up with away. I mean, that's part of the job. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. So he's doing that. Um, he gets trying to be bribed and taken advantage of by the gangsters, so by the local mob. And he fought against that. He he was injected with a horrible disease, which is so much worse than just getting beaten up. Like, because that's a torture. That's a torture because you know that it's just, at that point, you're on borrowed time. And he didn't give up after that. He grew. He got stronger. He went and fought crime. So we should take these things. This is someone that was given like a terrible hand in life, and he kept standing up every time he got knocked down. He stood up. He didn't even worry about brushing himself off. He just stood up and went right back on the attack. And that's someone that, fictional or not, we can all look up to because we've all been in those situations. So and having him be, if we were to reimagine him as a not just a person of color, but as someone in the um, LGBTQIA plus alternate lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, community, that just gives it even more representation. And And let's go back to the '90s with it because you know, if you look at media in the '90s, every single bit of like the um, I guess maybe with the exception of like the Ellen DeGeneres show, but every bit of representation was very stereotyped. If you were a gay man, you were probably really flamboyant. You spoke with a lisp. Um, just you were very frail. Let's have someone that you wouldn't know necessarily. That they were homosexual until you see them with their boyfriend. To me, that's the best kind of representation because it normalizes things, and when you normalize it, it's really hard to be against it. It's hard to take up arms against it when it's normalized because you really can't because you can't argue. You can't be like, well, of course he's like this. Look at how he acts, but he doesn't act any different. Um, oh, listen to how he talks. You could tell by the lisp. He didn't have a lisp. Let's let him be normal. Like let's let him talk normally. Um, the best way to get rid of discrimination is to normalize um, the everyday in people, the everything in people. You know, um, let's take the argument away from it. And I think that this character had so much potential, and I don't want to say the character fell flat because it didn't. They had great stories, but really, look at how this character was set up, and let's just tweak it a little bit, and you could see that 20, 30 years down the road, this character could have been, you know, um, like he could have been better than Batman. He could have been better than Superman. Let's be honest. We know that Iron Man is an incredible womanizer in the Marvel universe. What if he was homosexual in a stable relationship? What if Captain America? What if Steve Rogers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? What if he was homosexual? No one could argue it. You know, um, because he wasn't feeding any stereotypes. He was normalizing who he was, to where people couldn't argue. To where to be honest, in the Captain America movies and stuff, if he didn't have a female love interest, I don't think it would have taken any bit away from the movies. I think he'd have still been an awesome character because more so than him fighting for love or trying to get the girl, he fought for what was right. And that's what makes the Captain America character as great as it is that he fought for what was right. So, yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think of Shadowhawk? Could he have been improved on? What would you do? How would you tweak his character? What would you add? What would you take away? Let me know. Let me know what you think. You can catch me on Twitter at b4 it all one, or you can email me directly at b4 it all at yahoo.com. I also use this hashtag superherodeepdive. Put your comments down and use the hashtag so I can find you. And yeah, let's have a good conversation about this. This is the third hero, I believe, for African American History Month. I've got one more coming up, and then I'm going to switch it up. But I'm not staying away from minorities. Don't get me wrong. I'm not staying away from people of color. I just wanted to focus the month on this. But next week, I'm going to do one of my absolute favorite minority superheroes, Silhouette from Marvel. I've talked about her before with the Night Thrasher podcast. So I'm going to get into it. I hope you guys have a great day. Be smart, be safe, be blessed, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.